Good morning. We have switched it up, people. Welcome to Business Growth Insiders, episode 28, season 2, episode 6 or 7, I guess. I don't know. We're just chugging along every single week here, and I'm so glad that we are here. We are live. It is 9 a.m. Yes, I am timing it because we are usually in the mid-afternoon. So instead, we decided we'd get up early, drink a whole lot of coffee, and have an amazing conversation with Aaron Morrison today. But before we do, Lisa, how are we doing this morning?
We're doing great, and I am so pumped that we have Aaron on, and I love we have him on in the morning because anyone listening live to this, or listening in the morning afterwards, they're going to be just so recharged and have such a boost to their day. So I know Aaron's going to deliver, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yes. Aaron, how are we today?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
Doing good.
Awesome.
Doing good. Lots of things happening in the Evans household today. So hopefully it'll stay quiet for the show. Sure.
We'll handle it.
But we all have dogs and cats and kids and all of that fun stuff. So let's get right into it, guys. So I'm gonna intro my man Aaron here. Aaron Morrison helps stressed out type A entrepreneurs and professionals earning 6 figures to break the chains of fear and doubt and gain the clarity they need to answer the burning questions: scale or bail. If you're successful but feeling trapped and miserable, where do you go from here? Well, his mission is to create abundance on a scale that touches every life on the planet and to raise the baseline of the human experience. He does that by helping entrepreneurs fill their cups to overflowing because it enables them to pour into others. He helps them accelerate personal and professional growth so they can realize their potential, have the impact, and make the contribution they want. Aaron Morrison, welcome to Business Growth Insiders, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Cool. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. Now, you and Lisa have known each other for a little while. So how did you guys meet?
So we met at a networking event, and
Awesome.
she actually, it was kind of funny that, we met right at the point where I was transitioning out of my last, career, my previous life into my current life. I was blowing up my business, burning the boats, and jumping into coaching, all together. So it was an interesting time.
It really was. It really was. And it's been so amazing to watch Aaron as he has taken on this armor of who he is and how he helps people. And so I'm just so grateful he's with us today. I've been excited to have him on the show.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate it.
Now, well, really, the way we want to run this show today is, there are areas of focus that you have for your clients, and really, I think the best thing to do is just to kind of dive right into it, kind of go through your process, who you like to work with, and help us, because I know myself and Lisa mentioned as well, we could certainly use your help too. So why don't you step in and take over, my friend?
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to approach it from a kind of a higher level, a little bit more abstract. So I am first and foremost a passionate believer in the unlimited potential that lives inside every human being on this planet, and the unlimited range of possibilities that are available to each and every one of us. And I started out in the construction business back in 1998. I went from earning $500 a week to 6 figures a year, running a department with 100 men in it, managing about 10 million per year in business. Jumped ship, went from employee to entrepreneur, started my own business, grew it to about $500,000 a year in revenue before I realized that I didn't want to be doing this anymore. I was stuck. And that's that kind of place that I call scale or bail, where I had to either grow my business and hire people or quit and go do something else. And both of those options sounded equally terrifying and just miserable. So I didn't know what to do. So I was stuck right in the middle. And my life blew up, got divorced, had a bad breakup. 2 years and $100,000 later down my journey of personal development, I realized that it was my thinking that was the problem. And so I devoted myself to helping other people to change their thinking, to change their beliefs in terms of what was possible for them, to completely shift the paradigm of what we believe transformation is and what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's three main problems that business, and that's analysis paralysis, procrastination, and shiny object syndrome. And I call those indecision, inaction, and distraction, right? So we're not clear on where we're going. We're not taking action because we're afraid of things, afraid of failure, afraid of success, or we doubt our own abilities that we're good enough, or we don't take enough action or stay the course long enough. Things happen, we get pulled off course, we get in a funk, and we're not able to regulate our emotional state to the degree that allows us to, stay on track, right? Stuff pulls us or pushes us off course. And so the three things that I feel like we really need to focus on in our lives to be successful are clarity. Where are we going? Why are we going there? Right? That's the what and the why. Confidence or certainty in our ability to actually achieve the objectives that we set out to achieve. And then consistency, right? And this is, I think, probably pieces of the puzzle, which is our ability to self-regulate, our ability to notice, observe, process, and consciously control our emotional state. And so when you look at the statistics, and 70% of Americans are unfulfilled in their careers, 85% of New Year's resolutions are out the window by February, 92% of people don't ever accomplish their goals, then what I see is an epidemic of people not fulfilling their potential, right? The greatest regret people have at the end of their lives is the dreams that they didn't chase and the risks they didn't take. It's not the mistakes we make, it's the music that we didn't create. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's so much beauty and so much possibly gets realized that to me is a tragedy. And so my mission is to raise the baseline of the human experience, because needless suffering and wasted potential is a tragedy. And so that's my driving force. That's behind everything that I do. Literally, like that's my mantra. Every morning when my feet hit the floor, it's like, all right, needless suffering, wasted potential. We're going to crush that today, right? We're going to destroy as much of that as we possibly can. And so I was a guy that spent a lot of time doing something I didn't want to do because of my own fear and doubt. Right. And so having overcome that, I feel like, I'm in a position to help other people to smash their head trash, get rid of that old emotional baggage, and then take control of their thoughts and their emotions so that they get. And to that end, right, we talk about, I think it was Tony Robbins that said, all the pain in life comes from past sorrows and future concerns. And so it's living in the past and living in the future that causes most of our heartache. But then there's also the ability to control how we're feeling in the present moment, right? And that also relates to our relationship to the past and the future, right? Which I'm not going to get all quantum and be like, it does all exist simultaneously and all these things. But, realistically speaking, right, the past, our memories of the past are just memories, right? And there's a distinct difference between the event that happened, meaning that we gave it. The meaning that we gave it is what creates the feeling about it. We put a label on it, right? Mm-hmm. And the label is what gives us the emotion about it. Good, bad, right, wrong, better, worse. We're always making value judgments about things. And the value judgments are what create the feelings that we have. And then there's the future. There's worry, right? There's anxiety about things that haven't happened yet. Right. And I feel like the best thing that we can do is to control the way that we're feeling in the present moment, because what we do today affects what we're going to experience in our outcomes tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so there are some powerful techniques, some shifts in beliefs that I have found, a couple of just little 2mm shifts that if we were to adopt these things, if just try it on, right? See how it feels, feel free to reject it if it doesn't apply, take what I'm saying, think about it, and on, if it works, keep it. And if it doesn't, throw it out, whatever, right? No hard feelings. So I want to start in the past, right? And in the past, we have regrets, remorse, and resentment. we beat ourselves up over the things that we did and said that we regret, the mistakes that we made, and we resent other people for the mistakes that they made in the ways that they hurt and offended us. And there was a book that I read that was one of the very first ones that I read in very early on in my journey, and that's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And that was the first time I was introduced to this concept of not taking things personally. And from that book, I visualized this idea of, like people walking around with this goblet full of poison and handing it to other people and going, here, drink this negativity, and then in my mind, it's like, I can choose whether or not I want to take on their negativity. I can choose whether I allow their behavior to influence my internal emotional state. And then in my mid-20s, there was an Army Ranger that came to work at the company that I was at, and I was training him to do this job. And during the 2 weeks that he was with me training, he said, I like you. You're a smart guy. You're a passionate guy. He said, but you got to get control of yourself. So he goes, this road rage, this anger that you've got going on, he goes, you're not in control, man. He called it the gotcha game, where if you allow someone else to control your emotions, then they got you. They're actually in control. And so he taught me about some techniques that he and his team used to stay in the zone, to control their own emotional state. Because for them, for me, it was like, I'm mad about somebody cut me off in traffic. For them, it's literally like life or death. Success or failure rides on their ability to stay in the moment, stay present, and be resourceful and creative in the moment. And that was my first awareness of, self-modulation, self-regulation. And so there's a principle that the unconscious mind, so there's the conscious mind, which is like 10% of our behavior and our thoughts. And then there's the unconscious mind, which is like 90% of our behavior and our thoughts. And the unconscious mind is the province of all of our reflexes, everything that happens in the body outside of our conscious awareness, right? This intelligence that is controlling the 37 trillion cells, energy production inside of the cells to the tune of 700 trillion volts of electricity, which is, just mind blowing to me. All of our digestion, when we're injured, we heal, all the things that happen biologically inside of our body, outside of our conscious awareness. And part of that reflexivity is our emotions. And so we have to become the observer of those emotions. And stuff happens, and then we feel a certain way about it, right? And so in order to get control of our emotions, I feel like we have to change the way that we think about our emotions. And so first of all, the way that I look at emotions is that they're signals from the unconscious mind to let us know what we're thinking about. And when we feel a good emotion that we're happy with, right, or that we enjoy, that's not a problem. So we're good with that, right? We're thinking useful, creative things when we feel, positive emotions. And when we feel negative emotions, it's a warning from our unconscious mind that our thinking has moved into unuseful, unresourceful, not creative, primal type thinking, right? Survival, fight or flight, rather than, a powerful state, which is, like love and gratitude and things like that. In the past, regrets, remorse, resentment, right? We're beating ourselves up over the mistakes that we made, and we're holding a grudge against other people for the mistakes that they made. And the belief that I adopted, the belief that I held on to, that helps me to kind of mitigate that and release those old, attachments to those emotions and those events, is that people are doing the best they can with the resources they have in the moment.
Right.
And now that doesn't mean that they're not capable of more, because we're all capable of more. It just means that in that specific moment, for whatever reason, under those specific circumstances, based on how much sleep they had, what else they had going on in their life, whatever their bandwidth was, how much energy they had, how much water they drank, right? Like a whole myriad of factors. That's the best that they could do in that moment. Because our unconscious mind, it operates according to what's called the principle of least effort. It's going to find the fastest, most efficient way to achieve the objective, right? Because survival is our number one driver of behavior. After that, it's the avoidance of pain and discomfort, right? Which ties into survival. But number one is survival. And the preservation of resources relates directly to survival. So the unconscious mind, in the attempt to preserve resources, will find the fastest, most efficient path to the objective, right? So we know, based on that we are always and automatically selecting for the best option available. So people are doing the best they can with the resources they have in the moment. And if that's true, then they didn't intentionally offend us. That's just the best they could do. And we didn't intentionally make that mistake. That's the best that we could do. And it isn't until we make the mistake that we learn the lesson. Mm-hmm. It isn't until we observe the result that we got that we go, oh, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do there, right? Maybe there's a better option that would have yielded a result that was what I wanted rather than what I didn't want, right? But at the end of the day, you've got results you want and not results you want. You know, it's kind of a binary thing. You do something, you get a result. You observe the result. Problem isn't that we make mistakes and we get results we don't want. The problem is when we beat ourselves up over the mistakes after it's done, rather than just learning from it. So the belief that everybody is doing the best they can in the moment gives us forgiveness for ourselves and others. It gives us empathy. It gives us compassion. And so we can release the attachments to the old stuff in the past simply by choosing to believe people are doing the best they can, right? Because if we could have done better, we would have done better. So the fact that we didn't means we couldn't. The possibility didn't exist. We created the possibility by making the mistake and learning the lesson. And so we're constantly observing the quality of our results. And we're constantly calibrating based on that unconsciously to select the best option available. And our best is always getting better. Mm-hmm. And so now, see, the problem is people look at the learnings that we had and it's like, well, I should have known that then. Really? How could you have known it until you did the thing and learned the lesson, right? It's like none of us are clairvoyant. I take that back. Maybe some of us are. I don't know. I'm not. I'm projecting, right? Maybe other people are, but I have more grace, for myself. Is like, because I know that I can't see into the future, Right. If I could, I mean, I would have been a multimillionaire from gambling by now, right? But I mean, really, that's a practical application. But you didn't know what was going to happen until you did the thing. It's trial and error, right? Mm-hmm. Babies don't get discouraged when they fall down 1,000 times and they're trying to walk because they just do the thing, right? They're not judging themselves over the mistakes they make during the learning process. At some point, somebody told us that was a bad, right? We were told that making mistakes was a bad thing. And then we decided to believe it. And then we started beating ourselves up over the mistakes we made. So people are doing the best they can with the resources they have in the moment, right?
Aaron, I just want to interrupt. I just want to say this is such a paradigm shift for so many people. The ability to self-regulate and understand that we have the choice. And I think so many people go into situations, relationships with this wall up, with almost like walking into it with a shield of who is going to come at me. And when you have that attitude, you're giving those other people the power, but giving people grace, I think our world needs so much more of that. So I really just love that you are bringing that up. And that's the first thing we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. Get rid of all the old baggage, right? Because I mean, the fact we're carrying that stuff around with us and there's a weight to it, right? One of the most common things that my clients say after working with me is I feel so much lighter, right? Mm-hmm. Like I've offloaded all of this stuff that I've been just dragging around, And so in the present moment, getting hooked, right? Getting hooked in the present moment, emotionally triggered, means that there's some sort of unresolved trauma in the past, because it reminds us of something that happened before. Inside of our mind, right? So an event occurs and we label it and we give it a meaning and we associate it to things that have happened in the past. And so present things, I was working with a client that was having trouble releasing some, resentment from their present relationship. And when we dug into it, they realized that it actually was connected to surrounding their father, right, when they were in their late teens. And then once we got actually into doing the work, the technique, they realized that it was an event that occurred when they were like 2 or 3 years old that actually created the problem, right? So resentment later in life, right, 30s or 40s, however old this client was, resentments later in life attached to events that had occurred 6 months ago actually tracked back all the way to a meaning they gave an event when they were like 2 or 3 years old.
That's
right.
amazing.
So it is. The problem is we're not aware of those past, memories that are creating the present emotional result, right? Or the emotional trigger in the present moment. So in the present, there's a couple of different things that I feel we can focus on to instantly get better results and move us from a primal state like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, overwhelm, anxiety, stress, into a powerful state like creativity, happiness, joy, confidence, motivation, love, right? And that is to focus on happiness and gratitude. And so there's a direct correlation between how happy we are and how much control we feel we have over our lives, right? And so if we had about the way that we think things should be, and that's different from the way things are, then to the degree that our expectations and reality don't line up, we're going to be unhappy. That is exactly the degree of our unhappiness, is when we have expectations and when they don't match reality, and we get frustrated because we think that things should be differently than they are, right? So having the ability to accept things in the present moment, because I believe things are happening the way they're supposed to happen because it's the only way that they can happen. Because if they could happen differently, then they would be happening differently. So the fact that they're not means they can't, and just accept what is, because the universe is supporting you in your highest intention, right? Everything is showing up to teach you something or for you somehow, right? That's a crucial shift from, asking the question, how is this happening for me? Instead of why is this happening to me, right? Because the quality of our results is also directly correlated to the quality of the questions that we ask, right? So gratitude, what I find is that generally speaking, people can look at the challenges and the most difficult times that they've faced in the past, and after they've passed through that difficult time, after they've processed it and they've wrapped their head around it and understood it, they realize that the challenge was actually a gift, because their greatest strengths came from their most difficult challenges. And so if we can consciously realize that our greatest strengths come from our greatest challenges, then in the midst of the challenge, as unpleasant as it may be in the moment, if we realize that this is happening for us, that there's a strength or a skill that we're acquiring as a result of or out of this challenge, this difficult time, then we can short circuit the process, right? We can bend time. We can reach into the future to that future gratitude and bring it into the present moment, because we're realizing that our problems don't get smaller. We just get bigger, right? Problems don't shrink. We grow, and all growth is uncomfortable. That's why they say no pain, no gain. That's why they call them growing pains, right? All growth is uncomfortable. And the problem is not that growth is uncomfortable. The problem is that people want to avoid discomfort, right? Rather than leaning in. And so if we reframe the idea, right, of discomfort as growth, then we can begin to lean into that rather than pulling back. The present circumstances, no matter how difficult, the fact of the matter is we will be stronger on the other side of whatever the thing is, right? Whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And when we look at it that way, we can find gratitude for that in the present moment, and we can be happy. Because if we accept what is, and we don't have expectations that don't line up with what's happening right now, if we learn to be grateful for the challenges that we have because they're opportunities for growth, then, happiness is a state, right? It's not a goal. We can be happy right now simply by think about a time when you were totally happy, right? Just think about a time when you were totally happy and go right back to that time in your mind, right? Float down in your body, looking through your own eyes, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt when you were totally and completely happy, right? Just when you picture that, instantly you shine the light of your attention and your awareness on that moment and that emotion, and you can instantly begin to feel it. So we can control our state simply by where we direct our attention, which means if we're not experiencing emotions that we want to experience, we need to change where our attention is pointed, right? And that's the problem is I think a lot of people don't realize that they can choose to direct their attention to something else, and they fixate on the problem. And that's why skiers run into trees, because they're looking at the tree. They're not looking at the space between. They're looking at the tree. They're looking at the problem, and bam, they run smack into it, right? In motorcycling, it's called target fixation, where wherever you're looking, your bike is going to go because your body follows your head. So look where you want to go. Don't look at the thing that you don't want to hit because you're going to run right into it. So gratitude in the moment for the challenges that we're facing because they're opportunities for growth. Asking the question, how is this happening for me? What is the blessing in this? Because when we can accept it and be grateful for it, then all of that negativity just evaporates. It disappears, right? We can be very grounded, present in the current moment, and happy with the circumstances, even if they're not necessarily the most pleasant, right? Would we like it to be differently? Sure. But the fact of the matter is it's not. And so there's no point hoping for it to be different. The only thing we can do is take action in the present moment to influence our future. And so now I want to move into dealing with future problems, right? Like worry and anxiety, all the yeah buts and the what ifs and the worst case scenarios and all the things that we do inside of our heads that create that feeling of anxiety, right? Because when you think about when we define anxiety, the way that I define it, right? And now this is not to say that there aren't actual things that, need to be addressed or treated, mentally, psychologically, whatever. But anxiety is a future-based fear.
Right. Yeah.
It's not something that's happening that we're worried about may be happening at some point in the future. So anxiety to me is driving down a Pacific Coast highway, the top down, wind in your hair, the sun shining, not a cloud in the sky. It's a beautiful day, your favorite songs on the radio. And yet in your mind, you're dying in a fiery crash because you just drove off a cliff, right? Like nothing's wrong, but in your mind, you're creating that image. And because the brain doesn't understand the difference between real and make-believe, you're going to feel the feelings as if it's actually happening.
Yeah.
Right. And just like the skier running into the tree, because that's what they're looking at. We focus on things that we don't want to happen. We're actually increasing the likelihood of bringing those circumstances into our existence, right? Of creating those circumstances, because what you focus on expands. So where focus goes, energy flows. And so worry and anxiety in the future, right, it's not anything that's happening now. It's a picture that we're making in our mind of the worst case scenario that we don't want to have happen. That's really what it is, right? And when we define anxiety in that way, it's something that we're choosing to do because we're creating the images in our own mind. And so the question becomes, well, how do we not do that then? If we're choosing to do it, how do we choose not to do it? And so we simply there's a couple of different exercises that I walk my clients through whenever anxiety is an issue. And it literally takes like 3 or 4 minutes, right? So number one, I want you to imagine that you're sitting on your couch on Saturday and you're doing whatever it is that you do on Saturday, right? You're watching Netflix, or you're reading a book, or you're eating Ben & Jerry's in your underwear, whatever it is that you're doing on Saturday, and the doorbell rings. Open up the door, and it's your best friend that you haven't seen in 5 years, and they showed up, right, unannounced, because they wanted to show you their new haircut, and they're sporting a pink mohawk. And you're like, wow, that's a little bit surprising, but come on in. And because you're the gracious host or hostess that you are, you offer them something to drink. Hey, would you like something to drink? Yeah, I'm a little bit parched. And as you reach into the fridge and you push aside the milk carton to get the juice from the back, what color's the cap on the milk carton? Is it red, white, blue?
Mine's blue.
White.
Good. So what you've just done, right, is you've just proven to yourself that you can create images whenever you want, right? And you can remember images whenever you want. So if you can create images and remember images on demand whenever you want, then you're in complete control of your mind, and therefore you're in complete control of your results. And so now what I want you to do is I want you to think about an event about which you're anxious. Just think about it, right? Have you got one? Just got one? Okay, good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that event 100% totally successfully completed exactly the way you want it to be. See it exactly the way you want it to be. 100% totally completely successful, okay? I want you to see what you saw. I want you to hear any of the sounds that are important for you to hear. And I want you to really feel the feelings of that event 100% totally and successfully complete. Whatever that feels like for you, confidence, motivated, proud, whatever, right? So really see it, hear the sounds, and feel the feelings. Expand those feelings. Really feel them. And then when you have it exactly the way you want it to be, I want you to go ahead and float out into the 15 minutes after the successful completion of that event and turn and look toward now. And where's the anxiety? It's gone.
Yeah.
Because it's already completed. There's no purpose. And so now what I want you to notice is how in between then and now, all of the events are reorganizing to support you in the 100% total successful completion of that event. And as you float back toward now at your own speed, I want you to notice at least 2 or 3 events or people that are showing up to support you in the 100% total successful completion of that event. And then whenever you're ready, you can just go ahead and float back down into now. And so that exercise, what is that, like 90 seconds maybe?
Yeah.
And it got rid of your anxiety over the thing, right?
Yeah. Such a peace. You just feel such peace about it. It's like,
isn't that awesome?
Wow. That right there was worth getting up for.
Yeah. I mean, and so a couple of things about that specific technique. So you can run that technique anytime you want, right? If you're feeling anxiety about a thing, see it the way you want it, and then float out into the future 15 minutes after. The only reason you would still feel anxiety at 15 minutes in the future after the event is if you allowed some element that you didn't want to make it into the visualization. Mm-hmm. The only reason. And if that's the case, then just do it again. Mm-hmm. Make sure that it's the way that you want it. And then boom, because there's no reason for the anxiety to be there, right? And so anxiety really, when I look at it, right, we defined it as a future-based fear. But what it is at its core, ultimately, is it's a warning from the unconscious mind to focus on what we do want. It's the notification that we're focusing on things, we're creating images in our head that are not resourceful and not useful. It's like, we're still, a quarter mile up the slope, and we're looking at the tree, and it's that early warning sign saying, hey, you're staring at the tree, stop staring at the tree, right? And we have plenty of opportunity to shift our focus to where we want to go rather than the obstacle that we want to avoid, right? And that's really what we need to shift our focus to where we want to go and what we want to create in our lives, rather than the negative events, the negative consequences, and the obstacles that we want to avoid, right? Because when you focus on the problem, you only get more of the problem. When you focus on the solution, you get more of the solution. So I would encourage all of your listeners to adopt that shift in thinking, right? And so in my world, there is no such thing as good or bad, right? These are just value judgments. These are labels that we put on things. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Nothing has any meaning except the meaning that we give it, right? Whether the problem that we have in our life is something that's happening to us and causing us distress, or it's something happening for us and giving us an opportunity for growth, is all in the way that we think about it. And we choose how we want to think about the events in our lives. And so when we can acquire the ability to think about things neutrally, right? There's only resourceful and not resourceful. There's only useful and not useful, good, bad, right, wrong, better, or worse. It just is what it is, right? And so I truly do feel that the ability to regulate our emotions, to consciously direct our thoughts, and to move into a space of neutrality, right? Neutral thinking, where we're simply taking an action, observing the result, and calibrating based on that result to take the next action. That, and allowing that to inform our progress, because there is no such thing as failure. There's only feedback, right? There's only feedback. You take it, you do the thing, you take an action, you get a result, because you're always getting a result, right? Whether it's what you want or what you don't want, right? So if you sit on your couch, right, like The Secret would have you believe you can sit on the couch and visualize checks in your mailbox. It doesn't work that way. No. Right? The result that you're going to get is you're going to manifest an eviction notice into your mailbox, right? Right? If you don't take any action. So sorry, you guys froze for just a second there. So when I just totally lost my train of thought.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you, Aaron, while you're gathering your thoughts. I just think this is such a revelation. This, secret to becoming a bulletproof business leader, of what I take it, is that we do have control and we do have a choice on how we think about things. So I'd like to know your thoughts on, we all know people who have that glass half empty attitude versus those that the glass is not only half full, but it's pouring out the side. If you are the latter, I tend to be the glass half full and sometimes too much. And you're dealing with people who have the half glass or glass half empty. Any tips or techniques on how to navigate them, or even maybe how to help them?
So they have a hold on the problem. In their mind, they're holding on to the belief that the glass is half empty. And so what I do is I begin the process by getting them to see that there's a possibility of something else, right? Rather than, because what a lot of people do, and certainly myself, right? Like this is not like I wasn't born this way, right? I've had to acquire the ability to operate in the way that I do. I used to just, meet someone with resistance and opposition and try to argue my point. Whereas now what I do is I ask, is it possible that there might be another way? Is it possible that something else might be the case, right? Because when someone is so firmly rooted in their belief that the glass is half empty, right? It's like, if all you need to do is just crack that window just a little bit to get them to see the possibility that maybe the glass is half full, right? To begin to shift that, because once you introduce the awareness of additional possibilities, you've loosened their hold on that belief in that problem, right? And that's really all we have to do is if you can get your foot in the door, right? You open their mind to the other possibilities that exist, right? Then it's not so kind of myopic, right? It's not so like they've got their blinders on and this is just the way that it is. And so when you begin to shift the belief, right, by opening their eyes to the possibilities, so just ask the question, you know, like, well, what if it wasn't, right? What if it was half full? You know, well, I don't want to do the thing because I'm afraid of the result. Okay, well, I mean, what if you succeed? Like, what if you don't fail? What if you actually do the thing and you're successful? What then?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. At that point, you're peeling back the layers of resistance, really trying to get down into that onion, the stinky onion.
You don't have to peel too hard, right?
Yeah.
It's like I call it 90 degreeing, right? You're coming at it sideways just to, you know, just to begin to open their eyes. That's it. Just widen the blinders a couple of degrees, right? So that they can see more than what they saw before. And because what happens is when you show someone something that they haven't seen before, then they start to wonder, well, what else is out there? Right? That you engage that curiosity, right? Like clients that I've worked with that, you know, have tried other methods that didn't work. And then they work with me and problem's gone. You know, they're like, holy cow, you mean to tell me that I spent all this time doing this other stuff and it didn't work and we just like eliminated the problem that fast? And I went, yeah. And they go, okay, well, shoot, what else can we do? What else is possible, right? Yeah. So when you show someone another possibility, I think that, you know, they get excited, they get curious, they want to learn more, they want to explore, right? They see that like this path that they're on is not the only path, the only option available for them.
Yeah. Yeah, such a great tip to be able to help with coworkers, with employees, with staff members, and your relationships as well. But I think, Aaron, you know, when you're working with someone, when you talk about something happening that fast, give us an idea of what a client, you know, and I know there's a whole range of issues that they could come with, but you've got a process that really accelerates some other alternative ways to address some of the baggage we have.
So I call it the rapid recalibration method. And I've worked with clients on you know, anxiety and, you know, past traumas and negative emotions and stuff. Resentment is a big one that a lot of people have. But it's contextually based, right? So it's not like we sit and talk about the things and splash in the puddle, right? I'm not concerned about, you know, the specific details of the event, whatever it was that happened before. What I'm concerned about is what they made it mean that they're telling, because the story is what causes the emotion. And when we can change the story, we change the feeling, right? So we want to go back and examine what is the thinking, what's the label that they put on it, what do they believe about it, what do they believe about themselves and the world around them, right? And shift the beliefs, because everything starts with a belief, which at the end of the day is the meaning we gave an event, right? We decided that this event means this thing, and then that creates our behavior from that. And so it's changing that structure, right? Reorganizing the linguistics or the languaging of the problem, right? Examining how do they do the problem? How do they construct the problem? Because the fact is, if we're able to consistently create a specific result, right? Like then there's neurology there. There's a strategy there. There's a specific order of thoughts and behaviors that go into creating that result. And if we want to get rid of the result, right? We want to change the result. We have to change the strategy, which means adjusting and changing the thoughts and behaviors that go into. And so that's what I do is I dig into how do they do the problem? How are they constructing it, representing it to themselves so that we can deconstruct it and build it another way that gets them another result. Nice. Right.
Nice.
And I know that, as I said before, The unconscious mind operates on the principle of least effort, always and automatically selecting for the best option available when there's a better, more useful, I guess I shouldn't say better, there's a more resourceful and more useful path, a more useful option available, then the unconscious mind will automatically select it. So that what they find is they can't do the old problem anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the client that I was working with that I mentioned that had the resentment, right, from like events that occurred 6 months ago. After we dug into it and examined it and broke it down, you know, it was after we did the technique, you know, and it was like, you know, like, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, 30, 45 minutes. It was like, okay, well, yeah, I feel kind of ambivalent about it. It's not that much, not that big a deal, right? So it's like it just ceased to, the feelings just disappeared. And so a big piece of the puzzle is, you know, like obviously I work with entrepreneurs and business owners specifically on performance, productivity, and profit, right? Because they want to get more done in less time and make more money with less stress. Like that's what I do. And part of that is getting rid of the old junk that they're carrying around with them that's weighing them down and preventing them from stepping into the most powerful, resourceful, creative, motivated, confident version of themselves, right? So sometimes we got to get rid of the old stuff, but we don't want to splash in the puddle. We just want to get rid of it.
Right.
Right. And so that's kind of, you know, how I approach that.
Well, I can imagine people listening to this driving are about ready to run off the road right now because
I probably should have prefaced it and said, you know, don't close if you're driving, don't close your eyes. Don't visualize.
Yeah, we're doing that.
Just come back to it later. Come back to it later.
So, Aaron, I think we have just heard so much value from what you've brought to us today. If someone would like to contact you and work with you further or have a conversation, because, you know, I think the other thing we were talking about before is not everyone's a good fit for what you do. And, you know, you've got to have that connection. So tell us about that process. If someone was interested in working with you, walk us through that.
So the first thing would be, you know, we want to have a conversation around what's coming up. Is this a problem that I can solve? You know, do we get along? Does it make sense for us to work together? Right? Because like not everybody's a good fit. Right. But the thing to do would be to go to mindsetmd.com. That's mindsetmd.com. And, you know, just read a little bit about me. All of my links are in there for my file. You know, just check it out, take a look at my content, and there's a link to book a call, just a quick 30-minute discovery call to, you know, just get into like what's coming up. What do you want to achieve in your life, right? And what do you want to avoid, and how can I support you in that journey, right? And so that's the best way to go about doing that.
All right, that's great.
Now, do you have any kind of any books or other resources that you recommend just to try and get new people, you know, to be able to go down this path of discovering that thoughts actually do control things?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the first book that I mentioned, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, is a great one. And there are other books in the series that I won't mention or won't go into. There's Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy, which is another really, really great one. There's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Of course.
Another, you know, classic.
Yep.
And Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
That's another big one where he talks about neuro-linguistic programming, which is, you know, one of the major, you know, the main technologies that I use and what I do, creating rapid change and transformation. So those books, I think, are an excellent start, very kind of comprehensive foundation for personal change and transformation.
Awesome.
Yeah. And Aaron, you also, I know we talked a lot about one-on-one, but I'm thinking you're such a great resource. Are you available to come in and speak to companies or do workshops or maybe work with a team individually to help solve this? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, I do speaking engagements once every week or two. So yeah, I'm always like, look, like I said, my mission and purpose to raise the baseline of the human experience, because needless suffering and wasted potential is a tragedy, right? So anywhere I can, you know, plug in to eliminate suffering and tap into that potential, all of us, I'm down.
All right. That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for being on the show. My mind is blown, but not blown to the point where I can't think and start creating the life that I want. I'm
That's
sure
good.
Lisa feels the same way. So, if there's, do you have any parting words of wisdom here before we say goodbye?
I think I used up all my words for that. I said a lot of words.
50-minute episode, guys. This is a long one, and it's so intense. We're going to go back over this episode many times and pull out all the nuggets of amazing truth that you spit today, Aaron. It'll all be in the show notes once this episode goes live through the podcast channels.
Awesome.
Besides mindsetmd.com, you can find Aaron Morrison on LinkedIn as well. He's connected to both Lisa and I, so you guys can reach out there too. And of course, if you want to know more about Lisa and Jeff, go to businessgrowthinsiders.com. There you'll have all the resources you need to watch all the episodes that we've done and really go into depth with a lot of guests and just the two of us, because we're good people. We think so, at least. So, Aaron, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it, man. I'm going to have an amazing day today. I know it just by being on this episode. So, take your business
and grow.
Don't
Go
limit
ahead,
yourself
Aaron.
to today. I mean, take the stuff.
That's right.
I mean, you could apply it and have a good rest of your life. Like you could make every day great if you wanted to.
And that's why they pay you the big bucks for doing what you do. That's right.
That's
awesome.
right.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great and wonderful life. We'll see y'all soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.